Warning. This show features dark subjects which may be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Chaos Jar. I'm J Wes Secord, the loud and obnoxious one. Hey. And over here we have our big bag of facts, Bad Ben.
Hey.
And as always, our good friend A.T. Token.
Oh.
He's trying out one of his many tokens.
Yep.
Like they're Pokemon.
Like they're Pokemon.
Yeah.
Catch them all.
I think they have laws against that now.
I don't know how many we can fit in that cage.
Pokeballs haven't been invented yet. That's like another 100 years in the future.
Something called spice.
just random Cuban spices, just trailing under a box with a stick.
Oh.
And we put it all under a box with a stick, and we just pull the stick. And
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm glad we jumped right into racism. It's always great.
We already lost all the listeners.
That was like episode 1. If you're still with us,
You're also terrible.
thank you.
If you're still with us, we'll see you in hell.
Yeah. I'll be driving the bus.
We got better.
And I can't drive, so...
Yeah.
Yeah!
It's going to be a fun trip.
So, let's do our house cleaning quick.
All right, so follow us on Instagram and on Twitter, at BA Chaos Jar. And Wes's Twitter is at I'm glad you asked _ So,
I think what's made me laugh is you laugh every time you hear it.
Yeah, it's more of a grimace.
he flinches. It's crazy. It hurts.
Is it just because I told you the meaning of it was that the underscore was to represent an ellipses, and you're like, oh my god, I hate you because it's stupid.
No, it's just, it's such a fundamental part of you, and I hate you.
I'm glad we're getting all these jokes out now because we're about to get buckled into a really dark subject.
Yes, but if you go to my Twitter, if you ask me a random question, I'll give you random answers. Feel free to.
Yeah, at one point we're gonna have to just to watch Wes take his glasses off and be like, "Oh my god."
I do it because it hurts my nose, guys. You got shitty bad things.
All right. So, anyways, yeah.
So what's going into the jar today?
Well, we also want them to rate and review. Get us more listeners.
Right. Rate and review.
Like, comment, all that bullshit.
Subscribe. Patreon us.
Yeah, Patreon. Donate on Patreon.
We're an EV, and if you donate to our interests and artistic vision, we will evolve to Patreon.
Yep. So, anyways,
no, get it.
Before we buckle into the topic for what's going in the jar today, I just want to say there are crimes against children in this. So if this is about to trigger, if that will trigger you, you may want to skip the episode. I will try to warn people as it gets a little rougher, but
Maybe quiet parts.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be bad when he has to add a trigger warning after we've pre-recorded a trigger warning.
Yes.
And so we're going to have a trigger warning following a trigger warning.
Where we open racism and hate.
And then trigger warning, trigger, warning.
So,
Warning.
the topic for the day is Donald Henry Gaskins, otherwise known as Pee Wee Gaskins.
Like the guy with the special word show and the talking couch?
It's spelled the same, yes, but I don't think that's the same person. I would hope not.
I mean, how great a show.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
Well, that guy also had incredibly weird crimes, too.
Yes,
I'm sure
he had some
he seemed
famous
like a
wrists.
strange fella.
Well, do you not know? Do you not know?
No, he looks strange enough that I figured I don't want to know.
He masturbated in a theater.
In a porno theater.
Was it a porno theater? I thought it was it's one of his own shows.
No, that's a rumor. I think he was masturbated in a porno theater, and that's where he got caught.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah. So he was...
Okay, what does... I don't get a porno theater.
It was like a thing in the States. Yeah, you sit there and you watch porno because back in the older generations, there wasn't a lot of VCRs, so where would you go to get pornography? They made these porn places, and you would go and see them, and they still kind of have them. Like, they're mostly like adult stores that you go to, and in the back room they have videos.
Yeah, it's not as common nowadays. I don't think makes a lot of sense anymore because it's not profitable.
Yeah,
and porn's everywhere.
It's free too.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't get either industry.
Well, I'm kind of on that same, like, because of this pandemic, and no shame to any women or men that are doing this, but the OnlyFans community on its own, I don't understand how people will pay $19.95 to see this stuff when they could just look on the internet for free.
Yeah, and we don't even have to think about. You say $19.95. I've seen pornos go for like $80.
Yeah. Like,
is this for like a single video?
A single DVD. It's a porn parody or whatnot. I think it's usually.
Is it like Pirates? I know that had like an actual movie budget.
Yeah, well, same industry, same company.
Okay.
Like almost every parody movie they have is like over $90-something bucks. It's one of those things of, do we make it cheaper so more people come and buy it, or do we make it more expensive to compensate for the loss of?
Well, you don't like, you know what you know what OnlyFans is, right? Like,
I don't.
So it's where the general public makes an account.
Oh, OnlyFans. Yeah,
and then they so it can be amateur, it can be some professional like pornographers do it as well.
Is it like subscription based?
Yeah, and you get like pictures of whatever
so
subscription to individuals. Yeah.
Patron of porn, okay. And you get like exclusive looks at whatever. But to me, I'm always like, that's like, this is the day and age of free porn. Like, it's everywhere.
Like, it's not 70s level, but like, go out and date somebody. It's not that hard.
Well, that is a bigger discussion that
fair enough.
We've been on a date, and now
we'll watch porn together.
People do that, and I don't know how.
That,
other than like to run an ironic commentary, I'm like, we're never gonna do that.
Yeah,
we have completely lost the audience today.
Before we get into the thing, though, hilariously, the reason I learned about OnlyFans is because a TikTok person explained how she had just become a porn star to her dad through TikTok, and I was like, "What?
How did?
And I had to, no, the rest of the world has to know too."
Well, mine is because
literally did.
Yeah, how I even found out about what this was because when the pandemic started. I'm part of a group that's full of like people who are in customer service and restaurants and waiters and stuff like that. And a bunch of the females in there were like, just lost my job. How do I start an OnlyFans thing? And I'm like, what the hell is OnlyFans? And I look it up and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, and then
I think the potential behind it though is you can get like very specific things. I think that's the benefit.
Like incredibly tailored pornography?
Yeah, like the person in question who I was talking about was got into it because they were discovered as being a very top high quality cosplayer.
Okay.
And they wanted to see more of that stuff sexually, and that's kind of where it grew from.
Yeah.
So like
there's a logical path to that.
Yeah. So that's what I assume is the benefit to it.
Yeah, I guess so. I can kind of see that where like because it's a genre or something, and
exactly like there is easy to find cosplay porn, but like maybe it's not always.
Although we got so off topic, we went from talking about Pee Wee Herman to.
Okay, should we?
All right. Anyways,
Pee Wee Herman joke. Ha ha ha. We're all laughing now. Real guy.
So, well, let's talk about kind of where he's from. He was born in Florence County, so I'm going to talk about Florence, South Carolina itself for a second here.
What's the guy's name again? Because I actually forgot.
So it's Donald Henry Gaskins or Pee Wee Gaskins.
Okay, Gaskin is the word. Yeah, okay.
Florence is the county seat of Florence County, so he was born in Florence County, somewhere in there. It doesn't really say specifically where. It's located in the intersection between Interstate 95 and Interstate 20, and it forms the core of the PD region of South Carolina. And the PD region is named after the PD indigenous people that were in the area, and it runs along the PD River. So it's actually like that's the name.
I was thinking his initial. Yeah.
No,
I love you're starting to use initialism. Yeah, it's funny. You don't even have to. That's just a me thing. Everybody else, nobody even knows what initialism is anymore.
So,
technically correct.
Yeah.
Estimated population from 2019 was 38,531. Florence was founded as a railroad hub originally. It served a huge purpose in supplying the Confederate troops. It was also the site of the Florence Stockade during the Civil War, where Confederates would hold prisoners of the Union Army from 1864 to 1865. Roughly 18,000 Union soldiers were held here, and 2,800 of them died.
Some horrible conditions.
Jesus, we started with race jokes and then we get to Confederacy.
Yeah.
God damn it. We were on the ball with this theme.
So, as the 20th century progressed forward, the area became very reliant on healthcare, and because there's 2 hospitals and many pharmaceutical plants to drive the economy. It grew even further into textiles and manufacturing plants as they opened up in World War II. That happened just about everywhere. Currently, it's a city that's headquarters for companies for like AT&T, Trust Financial, Monster.com, Otis Elevators, CSX Railroad, obviously because it's a railroad hub, Wells Fargo, and the Bank of Canada. No, the Bank of America are located right within the city.
There's a lot of well-loved companies there, I'd say.
Do you know what those all have in common?
What's that?
They've helped me in no way in my life whatsoever.
Well, here's an even better one. This is a really crazy fact. The Toronto Blue Jays had a minor league team based in Florence from 1981 to 1986. No idea, but actually one of their major league players who helped them win the World Series played initially here before moving up to the main team.
I wonder if it's just railway access.
Maybe
cheaper living.
All I know is, so did I miss something? Is Florence in the GTA or no? Okay, which
South
is
Carolina?
South Carolina. Okay, I did hear right. So so this is fucking weird.
Really, the Toronto has quite a bit of rail track as well. So at least there's some connection.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. I failed geography. So.
Florence of all places?
Yeah, Florence, South Carolina had a team there for about 5 years.
Maybe they thought it was a guy and it was their agent.
Yeah. Send him down to Florence. He'll fix them right up.
Yeah, he'll fix them right up. I have a thing about barbers to talk about later, but let's keep going.
We're going to talk about the Phantom Barber again? No, just kidding. Anyway, so March 13th, 1933, Donald Henry Parrott Jr., and of course, I'm going to always say this because the crime and sports guys have ruined it for me. He's a junior. This is trouble. He was born in Florence County, South Carolina, to his mother, Julia Parrott. He was the final child.
If you need help with Julia, it's just Julia with a Y.
No, that's not. It doesn't even know how it's spelled.
No, I mean that's how you'd pronounce it. Yeah. I have a friend who
has. It might be something completely different. I think.
Eulea. Julia.
You know what?
You
know what? Just fucking write some of these on a piece of paper sometime.
Yeah. Anyways, He was the final child in a string of illegitimate children. Donald was known as Pee Wee because he only stood 5'4", and this is in his adult years, so 163 centimeters, and weighed only about 130 pounds or 59 kilograms. So a very small guy throughout his entire life, and he was small even during his childhood.
Sorry, how small was he?
5'4", so 163 centimeters, and about 130 pounds.
So he wasn't quite a little person, but he was really short.
Really short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Kind of hard height,
Yeah, about that.
we're probably sitting about his height right now,
Yep.
actually.
So, Donald suffered from a great deal of neglect and abuse. When he was 1, he drank a bottle of kerosene that caused him to have seizures until he was 3 years old.
Oh my god, why was there kerosene around?
And why did they let him have the seizure that long?
Well, they probably... Oh, I hate that.
Fucking Ben's face just broke me.
Why? Well, that would be an awful lot of neglect. So, as we know, he was a really small individual, and because he was a small child, this also led to a lot of ridicule and at the school. So, well, Donald would then fight the students for mockery, and it doesn't sound like he would win very often. So, but this didn't improve when he got home because, of course, his mother neglected him, and he had a stepfather who was an alcoholic and would beat him mercilessly.
Oh. Ooh.
So, at 11...
Trigger warning.
Yeah. So, at 11, Donald quit school and began working at a car garage. This is where he met up...
11?
Yes. Well, it's the 1930s. Well, this by the 1940s by now.
Oh, okay, so like a mechanic said, hey, why don't you just come over with me?
And apparently he was pretty mechanically inclined. At one point, he'll own a mechanic shop.
Okay.
So,
a bright spot, then.
this is where he met up with a pair of boys named Danny and Marsh. The three of them referred to themselves as the Trouble Trio. And
wait. Danny and Marsh.
Yeah, Danny and Marsh.
Dan Marsh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because as I was doing the research, that hit me. And I was
Yeah. Good. I'm glad I wasn't the only one who saw that there.
So, they referred to themselves as the Trouble Trio. They would burglarize homes.
Oh my god.
Frequent prostitutes with stolen cars. So, steal a car and then go and fucking pick up prostitutes. And also gang rape little boys.
Aww.
Yeah.
These were fun stories till then.
They would keep the boys quiet by threatening to kill them if they went to the police. However, the trio were brought down when Marsh's parents found them gang raping Marsh's little sister and beat the boys so severely that they were bloody. Danny and Marsh left the area soon after, and Donald continued his crime spree on his own. So basically, he had these friends that...
You need to see J Wes' face.
Yeah. He's just shocked
just
right
open
now.
mouth.
I'll be honest. There was a single sentence there that you could not leave your mouth agape.
Believe me, I had to take breaks researching this because I was just like, this guy's so goddamn dark.
Just the sister bit, and then the beating right afterwards. It just collided with way too many things at once in that single sentence where you're like,
Well, you don't come from that. Beat and bloody seems like a little bit light there, to be honest.
Well, the fact too that he continued this on his own when his friends left the area, you would have thought that, they left and now he's all alone, but maybe, again, he doesn't have the greatest home life either, so... So in 1946, Donald was interrupted while burglarizing the home of a girl he knew.
He knew.
She had struck him.
This guy's bold as fuck.
Yeah, she had struck him with an axe to interrupt him, but he managed to get it away from her and struck her in the head and arms before fleeing the scene.
Jesus.
The girl survived the attack, and Gaskins was arrested and convicted of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill. I'm just going to say, from here, he's Gaskins. I think it's because his stepfather, because he was an illegitimate child, and he was born Parrott, and his mother's last name was Parrott. And then, I guess, when his stepfather married his mother, they changed his last name.
Parrott is a weird last name. I wish you brought that up earlier. It would have been fun to
I did. I said what his name was right from the beginning.
Yeah, Gaskin.
Yeah, but then I said he was born Parrott Jr.,
We did have a bit of a conversation about it before recording.
Yeah, Gaskins was so neglected and referred to as Pee Wee by so many people, including his own parents, that It was during this court appearance when his name was read aloud that he discovered his first name was Donald. He had never heard his name until this moment in 1946.
That is like past gaslighting. That's just...
Yeah.
Holy shit! Well, honestly, I almost thought his last name was gaslighting for a bit there, but like that
is just a staggering level of abuse. Like, create your own monster.
You know, I was upset, you know, that no one told me what my ADHD was, and I had to find out at age 24. This guy didn't even know his first fucking name.
No, he just thought his first name was Pee-wee. His entire life.
God. I assume he has some resentment to the show or gets really triggered by it.
Oh my god.
Oh, it comes up, right?
I don't believe
this doesn't end there.
It entirely comes up, but this whole thing keeps going. So, Donald, for this, because he was a juvenile, was sent to a reform school. So, reform schools were like a juvenile detention center. They basically just took troubled people and put them all together in what would be a jail, but they're just too young for jail. So, he's still small. He's a very small man. He's a very small kid. So while housed in the school, he was routinely raped by other inmates. He would be passed around for cigarettes and other favors, and he claimed in one session at least 20 other boys basically gang raped him and ran a train. At least 20. So he traded sexual favors with one of the boss boys, so like one of the top levels, for protection, and was repeatedly interrupted while trying to escape. He did manage to escape the school, and in doing so, he married a 13-year-old girl who eventually turned himself back in to serve the rest of his sentence. Once returned to the school, he was immediately back to being the victim of these routine rapes. In 1951, he was released from the reform school, and he managed to get a job at a tobacco plantation. While at the plantation, he became involved with an insurance fraud ring where he collaborated with local farmers to burn down their barns. So these barns would be insured. They light it up.
This story got more convoluted than a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, however, word of these fires began to spread around, and his employer's daughter started asking him questions about the scandal. The two got into an argument where she insulted him. Gaskins took a hammer and split the girl's skull. She was a teenager. He was arrested and convicted of assault with a deadly weapon.
She survived.
And attempted murder, so she did survive. He was sentenced to 5 years in South Carolina Penitentiary. Yeah.
With a history like that.
So, again, Donald found himself being raped and owned in prison. However, he managed to turn this all around when he killed Hazel Brazel, the most feared man in the prison. He slashed Hazel's throat while he was on the toilet after he had been raped.
I mean, yeah. Fair game.
So,
prison.
This earned him not only an extra 3 years for manslaughter because he claims self-defense. But it also gained him a great deal of respect from his fellow inmates. From his feather. Yeah, from his fellow inmates.
Feathered friends. He had a collection of birds in his jail cell, and he liked to talk to them. Hey guys, how's it going? And they just gave him a lot of respect.
Well, you heard of the Birdman of Alcatraz. Well, there's the Birdman of South Carolina.
I thought it was the Mothman.
I don't know either.
It's Birdman. He kept pigeons, carrier pigeons.
Oh, that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought we were talking about the cryptid creature.
No.
No, okay, this...
We went way far.
Wow. Boy, did I just confuse several different things.
So, from here on out, he was considered a power man, so someone you don't mess with, and he was left alone. In 1955, his wife filed for divorce, and this enraged Gaskins so much that he managed to escape the prison by hiding in the back of a garbage truck while hiding in a garbage barrel.
I mean, wow.
Does anyone else picture that scene in The Hobbit where the dwarves are in the barrels going down the river?
Yeah. So, he began working at a traveling carnival and found himself...
I thought you said there wouldn't be anything humorous to take from this. This is like, you know what, going back to...
Is this where stereotypes come from? Is it this guy?
Like, way back when earlier episodes were making jokes about Tiger King and how like it just escalated in the weirdest ways. I should have saved that for this.
This story is this.
The guy
This
who
is
started
it.
this. I'm certain of it.
Like, it just gets ridiculous and more ridiculous.
Oh, it's
as
good.
it goes.
It gets way better. So, he began working at a traveling carnival and found himself married again for 2 weeks before he became involved with a Betty Gates. Betty and Donald went to bail Betty's brother out from Tennessee, so they crossed the state line.
I'm sorry. That sounded like a nursery rhyme.
I know.
Betty and Donald.
Betty and Donald went to bail Betty's brother out from Tennessee.
Is Betty the wife or the this?
No, this is a new girl. He had gotten divorced after 2 weeks from the other wife.
Okay.
So he's now twice divorced.
Yep.
So
2 weeks.
yeah.
One per prison sentence.
So
Mayor News? I don't know.
so however, when they arrived at the hotel, Betty's brother where Betty's brother was at, so like he wanted to like leave and be out of there. It was revealed that he was a recently escaped convict, and that he wasn't Betty's brother. He was actually Betty's husband.
Yay.
Okay.
The police were called when there was a small scuffle happening, obviously, and Donald was remanded to custody to serve the rest of his sentence with an additional 9 months for aiding in the escape of a prisoner. So Betty's husband, that he got completely fooled about, they basically convicted him of helping him escape without him ever having helped him escape, just to put him back into prison. Like, it's nuts. So Donald was paroled in 1961 and returned to South Carolina. He fell into old habits, burglarizing homes while working as a driver for a traveling minister.
You okay there? Need a drink. I'm guessing ministers don't do background checks.
I don't think they care when they're traveling. I'm pretty sure this is one of those, I will heal you!
Oh,
pay me $300, I'll get you into heaven.
Plus, you know, he's really small. He probably looks like a kid.
Yeah. Please help me, sir.
Priest jokes.
Yeah. So the constant travel from town to town made his crimes really hard to trace, so that's how he was managing to avoid capture for these burglaries on the homes. Gaskins was arrested again in 1962 for statutory rape, so he's only been out for a year. And he's arrested again for statutory rape of a 12-year-old, but he managed to escape to North Carolina in a stolen car.
How is he getting away?
I have no idea.
What the hell?
So
He gets into small spaces.
He's hiding behind the chicken cart.
He literally was in the barrel. Remember the dwarf image?
He is that stereotype.
So here he met up with his third wife, a 17-year-old girl, who eventually turned him in for statutory rape. And he was sentenced to 6 years in Columbia Penitentiary.
Only 6 years?
Yeah.
Seriously, he's got a rap sheet in how many states now?
2.
Okay, but still.
I thought it was more impressive.
Maybe 3 if you consider Tennessee, but still. Like,
Yeah, but...
he was... I love it. I was like, if you consider Tennessee as if Tennessee's not a state. I'm sorry, Tennessee.
No, you're not.
I'm not.
He was eventually paroled in 1968 and vowed never to return. So Donald picked up a job as a roofer in South Carolina, and in September 1969, Donald also picked up a female hitchhiker in North Carolina.
Oh, this will end well.
He made some sexual propositions, but she laughed them off, which enraged Donald. He then beat her unconscious, raped, sodomized, and tortured her for as long as he possibly could. When he finally grew bored, he brought them, both of them, like he brought himself and her, to a swamp, added weights to her body, and threw her into the water to sink and drown while she was alive. Quote, "All I could think about is how I could do anything I wanted with her." End quote. So,
does any of these states have, like, a death sentence? Or, like, what do they call it?
Capital
punishment. That's
corporal
it.
punishment.
No, corporal is when you...
Oh, yeah, capital punishment, yeah.
Capital.
So, Donald began traveling the highway frequently, picking up victims. He found that this process of rape, torture, and murder was able to satisfy the bothersome urges that had been troubling him his entire life.
Process.
Satiating these urges became his driving force in life, and he kept perfecting his methods.
He's just a well-developed monster at this point.
He began keeping his victims alive for days, torturing and raping them. He would also cut off pieces of their bodies, and then his victims would either be forced to watch in horror as he cannibalized the body part, or be forced to join him in the meal.
Like Hannibal.
This story has more world building than a lot of movies I've seen.
Well, the level of escalation, like every third sentence, we're up a level.
Yeah, like there's...
Like, I'm detached at this point.
There's so much character development happening. I know it's a real thing that happened, but I don't think we've ever actually got this much information on a single individual in any of these stories.
Oh man,
he's well documented.
It's crazy.
But the thing is, he's not crazy. He's very procedural.
Oh,
he knows what he's doing. That's so much more frightening.
So yeah, it gets worse. He would kill them in many different ways, including suffocating, stabbing, strangling, and even shot.
He's just experimenting at this point.
Yeah. Afterwards, he would sometimes mutilate the bodies.
Hey, bonus.
Donald managed to avoid suspicion because he always worked alone. Most of the people in town viewed him as a hot-headed and mentally disturbed individual, so they would leave him be. They would avoid him as much as possible, and he actually benefited a lot out of this solitude.
So he mostly targeted young people who just didn't know any better.
Yeah, well, they're like hitchhikers, people who broke down on the highway, stuff like that, but there's a little more to this as well. Despite this, he was actually well-liked by quite a few individuals who considered him a friend, thought he was friendly and helpful. This is how he managed to get Doreen Dempsey, who was 23, 8 months pregnant with her second child, to let him give her and her 2-year-old daughter, Robin, a ride to the bus station when they were moving away from town. Instead, Gaskins took them to a wooded area where he raped and killed Doreen in front of her daughter, then raped, sodomized, and killed the toddler. He buried the bodies together after cutting off Doreen's leg and eating it.
Yeah, I'm on a commentary here. That's just too fucked.
Yeah, he's messed.
Yeah,
I'm out. Sorry, boys, we hit a limit.
I'm trying, but this is getting...
This is like past what a wolf would fucking do.
That 2-year-old,
animal.
that 2-year-old is about as dark as it gets, but there's still a little more. It's not as dark as that, though.
Sure.
While Gaskin did prefer female victims, if male victims were convenient, he wouldn't hesitate. When he had male victims, he actually routinely castrated them alive.
Is that just like revenge for the prison center?
I guess so. Probably taking those frustrations out. He actually separated his murder victims into 2 categories. Those he found on the highway were considered recreational coastal kills. That's an actual quote from him. While he considered his acquaintances, the people he killed that he knew in his real life, as serious murders. For the recreational kills...
Someone was just dealing with his demons.
Yeah. For the serious murders, he mostly killed out of rage, profit, or both. So, like, he'd be really angry at the person, or somebody would pay him to kill them, kind of thing.
Oh, he was like an assassin.
Oh, yeah, eventually, there's actually a whole thing in here. He racked up over 80 recreational kills, though, so...
Just recreational?
Yeah, so these people along the highway...
Rage issues, so, like, double, maybe triple that.
Yeah. His serious murder victims included also...
How have we never heard of this guy?
Not sure. I think it's just based on the time kind of thing.
But, like, the level of monsters, like, in my head, unprecedented. Yeah. I've never heard of anything like this. I've dealt with war criminals. That's not true, but, like...
It's so true, especially
displaced from like North America. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, like it is crazy that we haven't heard about it, especially because, like, as I was mentioning, like the character development thing. Like, this is more information on this guy than we had on any other subjects we've had. And how is it that, like, we don't know more about this?
So
I think it's like national shame almost, because you hear about this shit overseas a lot, and you do hear the story.
I'll kind of shed a little bit of light on this. A lot of these murders that we're talking about, like these 80 kills and stuff like that, they come from confessions from him.
Also,
so some of them are not confirmed. He does have confirmed kills, and we'll talk about that. But if his kills are true, I will give us a number. But if his kills are true, he'd be the most prolific serial killer in the world.
So the stuff you're telling us, is that stuff confirmed? His stories?
Some of it is his, and some, like, these are things that police believe he did, but also that they can't completely confirm because they can't prosecute it because they have no evidence other than his confession.
Presumably, he got lifetime and is probably dead?
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
His serious murders included his niece, Janice Kirby, who was 15, and her friend Patricia Ann Alsbrook, 17, whom he lured to an abandoned house where he beat, raped, and drowned both of them. His own niece.
I don't think this guy cared about anything.
Yeah,
so
he just...
Like, we're past the point of surprise.
Yeah. So, by 1975, he had worked alone. He'd always worked alone for his murders. But after killing 3 people whose van broke down on the highway, he then realized he needed to get rid of the van, and he called upon an associate named Walter Neely.
He had associates?
So, Walter was an ex-con, and Gaskin was hoping that he could have it brought to his garage, like the van brought to his garage. He just needed someone to drive it, where he would repaint it and sell it off.
Like in Grand Theft Auto, huh?
Yeah. So Gaskin slowly began to include Neely in further in his crimes, and would even allow him to fence stolen goods.
Okay, but he wasn't involved.
He wasn't involved in the murders just yet. Like he's
facilitating this insanity.
Of course, it's just yet.
Yes. He becomes involved not in the killings themselves, but we'll talk about it. But the same year that this happened in 1975, Gaskins was hired to be a hitman for Suzanne Kipper to kill her boyfriend Silas Yates for $1,500. Now, this is $1,500 in 1975.
What, like $30,000 now?
Pardon?
I don't know how much. I don't know what that translates to.
That's inflation, so probably closer to like maybe 10 grand, 15 grand.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure either, but
I never understood inflation.
So,
just that it sucks for me.
Yeah.
And most people in Ontario.
You mean in Middle Dakota?
Sucks. No, people in Ontario suffer from it too.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about.
Is this like a gingivitis ad?
That's why I said, me and people in Ontario.
Yes.
Jesus.
So, Gaskin had 2 accomplices named John Powell and John Owens. They handled the communication between himself and Kipper. So now he's hiring himself as his hitman, and he has these 2 guys knowing that there's communication between it, and they know he's going to kill somebody.
So he's got like a little network going.
Yeah. So on February 12, 1975, Donald had Diane Neely, recognize last name, Walter Neely is his associate, Diane Neely, lure Yates, so the victim, Silas Yates, out of his house by claiming car troubles. Gaskin then kidnapped and murdered the man while Powell and Owens watched. The 3 men then buried Silas. While it seemed that the plan had gone off flawlessly, there was an obvious loose end in Diane Neely. Neely and her boyfriend decided to extort Donald for $5,000.
Well, that'll go well.
Donald set up a meeting to provide the hush money, and the 2 vanished.
Yeah.
So, 2 locals, Dennis Bellamy, 28, and Johnny Knight, 15, also robbed Donald.
Johnny Knight?
Yep, Johnny Knight.
That is I'm not sure if that's an unfortunate name, or is that a really cool name?
No.
It sounds really cool, and if you're...
No, you're irrelevant in this. It sounds really cool.
I thought it was made up when I first read it, and I was like, there's no way this guy's name is Johnny Knight.
It almost sounds like an anime name.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm Johnny Knight.
Well, that's how it happens. The dad thinks it's cool, but he doesn't know what cool is, and then, well, the kid is inevitably what results from that.
Yeah, which means it's cool.
So anyways, these 2, so Johnny Knight, 15, they decided to rob Donald's repair shop. This went awry for them when he subdued and killed them before calling Walter Neely to give him a hand burying the 2 bodies.
Yep, mugging the monster.
Neely would later talk about the fact that he was there when he did kill them. So he witnessed the murder. He did witness the murder. He basically called Neely and was like, I got 2 bodies to bury. And then when he showed up, he's like, okay, let me just finish them off, kind of thing.
He was playing with them.
So while doing so, Gaskin revealed the location of other bodies to Neely. So basically, when they went to bury these bodies, he then popped it open. And we'll talk about the bodies in this little plot of land soon. So around this time, 13-year-old Kim Gaskins had disappeared. The authorities became suspicious of Donald, after finding out that Gelkin had...
Sorry. You're talking about all this dark stuff, and then my Netflix on my TV just starts going into the random images and whatnot, and one of them was the Kissing Booth 2.
Nice.
Just in the middle of this, and it's like, that's kind of humorously out of place.
Well, it shows
What
like
bad time,
a young teenage girl who I just looked at and I'm like, oh, there's a victim.
Yeah, I might not have actually looked that up if you hadn't seen it.
Fair enough.
So, the authorities
Yeah.
became suspicious after finding out Gelkin had rejected him in his sexual advances many, many times. They conducted a search of his apartment and found clothing that Kim had worn. So Gaskins was arrested for contributing to the delinquency of a minor on November 14th, 1975. Okay. While awaiting trial, the police were putting pressure on Walter Neely, so his accomplice, and he cracked, confessing that he had witnessed Gaskins murdering Bellamy and Knight.
So that's how they go.
Neely was also stated that Gaskins had confided to him that he had several more victims that were listed as missing people over the last several years and revealed a makeshift cemetery to him. On December 4th, 1975, Gaskins, with basically any other options, brought the police to a property he owned in Prospect, South Carolina. Here, the police uncovered the bodies of Silas, Judy, one of the hikers, Diane Neely, her boyfriend Howard, Johnny Knight, Dennis Bellamy, Doreen Dempsey, and her daughter Robin.
8 bodies?
8 bodies. So, Gaskin and Walter Neely were charged with 8 counts of murder on April 26, 1976. Gaskin's trial began on May 24th, 1976 for the murder of Bellamy. So just one guy so far.
Well, they go one at a time, don't they?
Sometimes they'll group them together, but I think each individual one wanted...
They wanted to stack the charges to make sure he's not coming back.
Well, they found the bodies. Like, he led them to a cemetery, so what else are you going to do?
Basically, if you stack 8, you can't appeal 8.
I know.
You'll die of old age.
So, he was convicted of the murder of Bellamy on May 28th, 1976, and was sentenced to death.
Yeah. Good.
Gaskins had confessed to the other 7 murders in order to avoid those being death sentences. It didn't work, though.
Well, no shit. You're already going to get killed
But
in the first
his
one.
sentence was commuted to life in prison with 7 more consecutive life sentences due to South Carolina General Assembly conforming to the new ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court about the death penalty being unconstitutional. So I don't know if you guys were aware of that. At one point in the United States, death penalty was unconstitutional for a small period of time. So anybody who was on death row was commuted back to life.
So did he later get reinstated?
So it's kind of an interesting story.
Okay.
While imprisoned in a high-security block of the South Carolina Correctional Institution, there was a death row inmate, because this is when death row had come back. In 1978, they did put it back in, so this is in the 80s. There was a death row inmate known as Rudolph Tyner. He had killed an elderly couple during a botched armed robbery of their store in Burgess, South Carolina. Donald gave Tyner a device similar to a portable radio. The device was supposed to function as a type of communication between the cells so they can talk to each other.
Transmitter.
Yeah. So, on September 2nd, 1982, Gaskins instructed Tyner to hold the device to his ear at a specific time, which is when Tyner would hear Gaskins talking to him through the thing. So they were supposed to have, you hold it at this time, we'll have a chat then.
You know, now I just picture it's just 2 cans with a string
over a wall,
and for some reason the guards are like,
yeah,
what?
Why not?
Okay.
So Tyner did as he was instructed, and at the specific time, he put the device to his ear. That's when the device suddenly exploded.
Yep.
At the agreed time, Gaskins had detonated the hidden C4 inside of the speaker of the device.
Wait. He had composition 4 in prison on a death row.
Yeah, he wasn't on death row at this point. He's in a high security block, though.
Okay, but how?
We're going to talk about that. So, quote: the last thing he heard was me laughing. End quote.
So it was a functioning transmitter as well as an explosive device. I mean, that's just brilliant.
This actually hadn't been Donald's first attempt on Tyner's life. Tyner just didn't know it. He had several failed attempts of poisoning him before deciding on explosives.
Your mouth is stuck again. Oh, you're not used to this level of crazy. Right?
So, why would he do this to this random individual? What did Tyner do? Well, let's talk about that. It came out that the reason for the murder was that a man named Tony Simo had hired Gaskins to avenge the death of the elderly couple who were relatives of his. So Tyner killed these old people, was convicted of death, to death row, but Tony felt like that wasn't justice enough.
Explode.
So he hired Donald.
How? How did he even get in contact with him?
He just went in there and knew that he was in a high security block, which the death
Can you just
row...
walk up to high security people and say, hey, I want to talk to him?
Who knows?
It's probably like
Prison is weird.
extreme measurements and stuff like that. But the prison system in the United States is also like money based. So if you
Yeah, I
have
guess.
enough money,
Throw enough money around, you get what you want.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Is you get it put into your commissary, like
Which is like a prison shop.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Donald was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death for this.
Yep.
Again, death penalty was reinstated in 1978. It's now 1982.
How come his old one didn't get reinstated?
Because once they commute it, they can't reinstate it.
Okay.
It was the first time in South Carolina history that a white man was sentenced to death for killing a black man.
I mean, yay, but like the least important part of that.
So this murder
it does speak volumes of the country, though.
Yeah, that's what it took.
So this murder earned Donald the moniker of the meanest man in America.
I mean, you're underselling that slightly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even call him a man.
The meanest man of America. That is
in America.
So underwhelming of a title.
Yeah, it makes him sound like he's just grumpy all the time. Like,
well, I guess maybe it's because of his size. He's just this tiny guy going,
I'll kill you! I'll kill you! Yeah. So Gaskins was moved to death row, and while in there, he began using confessions to over 100 slayings. Pardon?
To buy time?
Yeah, these were to try and stay his execution. Amongst his claimed victims, so he confessed to between 100 and 110. Amongst his claimed victims was 13-year-old Margaret Peg Coutinho, the daughter of South Carolina State Senator James Coutinho Jr.
Ooh.
However, prosecutors had already sentenced William Pierce to life in prison on her murder, so Gaskins' confession was rejected.
Did they look into it, though?
They didn't bother. This guy's already serving time. So,
well, the other guy could have been wrongly convicted, in theory.
Yeah,
they don't care.
They don't care.
Oh, justice system.
So,
yeah.
Gaskins worked with the author Wilton Earl on his book, The Final Truth. In it, Earl discusses Donald's bothersome feelings, which I don't like.
Again, understatement.
They're not bothersome.
This guy's like, he doesn't have demons. He fucking is one.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
that bothersome opinions. I'm going to watch the most grueling and horrible thing in front of me and then go, well, I find myself just slightly uncomfortable with this situation.
Was the person British?
No.
The writing? No? Okay.
Just
the language. I gotta check in there.
I kind of went with that, though.
So he also discusses the frustrations that the urges brought on to Gaskin. Poor guy. When
he doesn't come from nowhere, to be fair.
But it caused him to act out and fall into the criminal world. Like, he does discuss, like, the childhood abuse, things like that. It's a
he
whole
didn't
book.
have a chance, but, like, to go this
far. So the execution date was set for September 6, 1991. He was strapped into the electric chair with freshly stitched arms after a failed suicide attempt. Donald had tried to slit his wrists with the blades, like with razor blades, that he had swallowed then regurgitated in the death chamber.
Oh, that's dedication.
Donald's final words were, "I'll let my lawyers talk for me. I'm ready to go."
They accepted it.
The only family member that came to witness his execution, only his family member, was Donald's 20-year-old son, Donald Jr. This guy had kids. He was executed by electrocution at 1:10 a.m. He was 58 years old. Gaskin had several nicknames, including Pee-wee, which we already knew about, the Redneck Charles Manson, the Hitchhiker Killer, and Junior Parrot, which...
undercell is like the highlight of this one.
Like, Junior
You might as well
Parrot.
call this underselling demons. Jesus Christ.
The junior parrot. That sounds like a fucking cereal mascot.
Yeah.
Junior the parrot. Like
That sounds like a Disney sidekick.
yeah.
What the hell?
So his crimes were documented in a few TV documentaries and in that one book. One of the documentaries does feature his daughter, Shirley Gaskins, who actually said that she never suspected for a moment that her father was.
Are his
this.
kids alright? Like, they're just people?
I guess so. I haven't seen
hope
anything
so.
else about them.
Well,
Shirley,
Judging from what you said about the daughter, it sounds like he kept that so well hidden.
I think he probably, for his own kids, didn't want them to have any of the stuff that he had happen to him, so he just kind of separated it. But also think about the fact that he was married 3 times, and so like,
He might have just been on the
and
road.
he like left all of these. He left all of these kids, so they probably, when they saw him, he probably was like a Disney dad, like. You know,
Yeah.
oh, like, they're so excited to see him because he's so nice and does all this stuff, but they don't have to live with him.
Right.
So,
Right, the dad who only shows up and pretends to be the perfect dad, only to
For 10 seconds.
disappoint you by abandoning you again.
Yep.
Jesus.
And that's it.
That's it. Well, yeah. How do you end that, right?
And that's it!
Holy
Jesus.
Christ.
Like, I see why people don't talk about him. He is, like, a cultural failure come to life to kill us for
So,
failing.
I had heard of him before, but I had like the small circumstances of his crimes. I knew that there was like 8 victims and that he killed in prison and things, but I didn't realize how far this went. Like, and as I was reading this story, like, his Wikipedia page is super short. And then you get into the source material and you find these other materials. And there was one really brilliantly written article that had provided a lot of details as well that kind of branched out what I was finding. And then there's another article that added to this, and there's small discrepancies between both articles. So I kind of met it in the middle and went, okay,
This is our bibliography.
Yeah. But I just, when people are researching this, there's obviously people who know about these things, but I didn't realize how crazy this
Like,
whole thing.
the scope is incredible.
Like, the fact that when he was in prison the first time, like, his first ever kill is the most feared man in the prison that he's in originally, and he slits the man's throat while he's on the toilet. Like,
but that is perfect. Make your own monster. Like, that's how you step up from being a victim to taking control as a monster.
and in all honesty, I think that the abuse throughout his life and the fact that he was short all his life and ridiculed for it, and then he kept being owned and stuff like that, eventually he was going to have to do something, or else just be a
severe
victim.
Napoleon complex,
Yeah,
probably.
like he was eventually going to have to do something to break that image of I'm small and weak. So he just became a fucking monster.
Yeah, he always had something to prove, and monsters are very, very large creatures.
Also, think about this. He preferred female victims, and he would take a lot of these victims by surprise, right? So once he had them, he would keep them alive. Like it said in there, he kept them alive for days. This is probably more about the fact that he never really had control over things in his own life. So now he has control over a living being. He can make them feel as miserable as he feels in his own life. Like,
Has a psychologist ever interviewed him? Probably not. Not on record.
possibly in the end of his life and so on, but like,
At the very least, there's no record of it.
Yeah. Because that's like 6 books in of itself.
Yeah, like I said, this is more character development than I've seen from a lot of fucking things.
in all honesty, this thing felt so over the top that it almost felt like,
It reads as fiction.
yeah, it's almost like it's not
yeah,
real. Like, but it's all there. Like, these records are there. All this is there. Like, any one of these articles that I went through, they all had the same details for many of these victims. Like, for instance, each one of those articles states that he did kill that toddler, that he did do all these things to that toddler, but only 3 of the articles gave me the toddler's name. So,
That might have been.
yeah,
what I
tried to,
expect.
like, hold back, right?
Yeah.
But same thing with Doreen. They all described that she was friends with him and she trusted him. And then all of a sudden, that happened. They all talk about Diane Neely and the whole
Well,
blackmail thing.
let's be clear. It's not all of a sudden. This guy has a clear pattern that comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
You don't make this kind of crazy doesn't come out of nowhere. You make
But it also seemed like
when
his...
people say all of a sudden, it usually is from the perspective of the person who didn't see it.
Oh, I know. I just want to categorically separate. Like, this doesn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I feel like the end of that, how he got caught because of Walter Neely, I think he started to get... Because, like it said in there, most of his victims that he's talking about were just random people that he found on the highway. Then, all of a sudden, he started taking hitman jobs and started going for personal vendettas and involving his friends in the burials and all this kind of stuff. Like, that means that he started to, like, get a little sloppy at the end there because he started realizing, oh, if I get some help, this might be a little easier for me and I could take on people I know, including the fact that the only reason he got arrested was... like they even had him on hold, was because of that whole 13-year-old disappearance who had rejected him. That was obviously out of a pride thing that she'd been rejecting him and he wanted her.
It also went from satiating his demons to embracing them.
Yep.
And just, like, literally turning it into a job.
Yep.
Ugh.
So, yeah, he's just slowly demented down.
It's really like a third world warlord in your neighborhood. That's what this reminds me of.
Can we go back to the Phantom Barber? Just imagining Danny DeVito trying to climb in someone's window and cut their hair.
Now all I can think about is the fact that this guy is so short too, and he's probably about the same height as Danny DeVito. Like,
see, that's kind of where I came from it too.
You just need a bright spot.
We just need to write movies for Danny DeVito.
I think he's set, to be honest.
Probably, but what would it hurt? It's Danny fucking DeVito.
True.
I don't think... He's kind of like Christopher Walken. He just takes whatever job he wants.
And it works.
And it works. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, woo!
I want to say fuck that guy
So,
and fuck everybody who let that happen.
So that's the redneck Charles Manson, and
No, it's Junior Parrot.
yeah, Junior Parrot.
We're not giving him the time of day. He's going to continue to be Junior Parrot as far as I'm
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
I'm cool with that.
I respect how this, like,
Pee Wee Junior Parrot.
Pee Wee Junior Parrot. God, he gets more cartoony as we create him.
And he's super short too.
Yeah, so Pee Wee Junior Parrot, played by Danny DeVito.
Finish the man, not the act.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I think I'm gonna name the title. I'm gonna title the episode that Pee Wee Junior Parrot.
Played by Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Or are you gonna wave for that as the surprise?
Oh man. Holy Christ.
No, I don't have a happy bow tie.
And the fact that he had, what gets me more is the fact that he has kids. And
well, that doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me that he has
He's copying
kids, but the
his
fact...
actual dad's behavior.
I guess so.
Like it's just learned behavior. But what surprises me is that he might have been a good dad even for 10 minutes. Like, how the hell did he pick that up?
Who knows?
Maybe just that much resentment towards his father. He didn't want to be his father in that way.
Stepfather.
Or, sorry, stepfather. Thank you.
Well, that's me. Like, I'm who I am because I hated my dad, and I just inverted his values. But it kind of worked out.
Yeah, maybe that's just what happened in that case, but only specifically in the case of his kids.
Well, the thing that gets me there is that function in me did not work for my kid. Like, I'm a good dad because I like my kid, and it genuinely changed me as a person. Whereas, it sounds like if what you're saying is true, he never actually connected with his kids. Which is probably for the better.
He probably didn't. Judging by the fact that we talk about him being the Disney dad and never really being there.
Fair enough. For the better, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's wrap that up from here, because we just had a very deep, insightful look into things.
Nobody had good prolonged contact with this guy.
No. Oh, God. Well, as usual, take us out with some house cleaning.
All right, so I won't say if you liked that story, but if you enjoyed the tale, I guess, like if you found it riveting, you know,
if you're interested in hearing about the minds of absolute
Monsters.
monstrosity.
what he said,
No other description.
then please subscribe, rate, review.
It was 5 stars.
Plus, check out our Patreon. We got cool shit.
Yeah. Pardon?
Can we do an easier one next time?
I actually have an
Scale this
easier
down a bit.
case. Yeah.
I actually have I actually had something planned for the overflow that was supposed to be lighthearted, and so it actually kind of works out.
Yeah, so again, if you do subscribe with the Patreon, you get to hear the Overflow podcast like a month before we submit it out. But
We might bring that a little closer, depending. But we'll see.
it's possible it might become a whole show on its own. But
Yeah, we might like.
But again, if
Make
you
it a week
but
after
again,
our
if
third
you
one.
donate money and it helps the show grow, and you also get your name read out at the end of the thing. You notice that all the episodes I don't read any names because so far we haven't had any donations. But
Oh wait, here's one by. Oh no, that is just my hand I'm staring at.
I thought you were gonna say Pee Wee Junior Parrot.
I'd have to leave.
No,
He submitted $5. Wait a minute.
No, it's I should have. Fuck, I can't remember. But the one guy who sends like. Oh God, we were making a joke about a dude who sends letters to people talking about his fucking about his crimes to shut them up.
Oh yeah.
And I pretended to read a fan
Yeah,
letter.
the Circleville letter writer.
Yeah, he's liking our Patreon. There is a humor to all these terrible people liking our Patreon and becoming fans of our show for no explicit reason.
Yeah. Well, also the jokes are there just to kind of like lighten the mood because when you just talk about
The volume of this horror without any humor, like I couldn't do it.
that's kind of why I do some of these like haunted tales, like the Doll Island and stuff like that, because at least as creepy as that is, it's not this dark ass story about.
You need a breather.
Yeah.
You need a breather.
That's why I'm here. I barely understand it. It's easier for me to make jokes. It's just all the good stuff.
But yeah. So yeah, do all that. Like us on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter.
And you can talk to me on Twitter to get more of those awkward jokes that I was talking about.
And you can ignore me.
Yeah, don't give a shit about him.
So
Send
add
me
BA
food to my cage.
So, yeah, that's kind of why we need the Patreon donations too. We need to feed him.
his water hamster water thing isn't as filled anymore. I know we could use it on the tap, but money helps.
Yeah. We got to keep the water flowing.
Not directly.
Yeah. So again, at BAKSJar and at I'm glad you asked _ waiting for the flinch.
That's your version of monster to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and then on Facebook, Pandora Jar Podcast. So yeah, and that's it.
Well, you guys have a good night. Goodbye.